Imagine spending years building the perfect stage, the biggest stadium ever constructed, the most elaborate opening ceremony in history, the entire machinery of a nation pointed at one single moment. All to prove one thing, that your people were superior to everyone else on Earth. And then a black man from Alabama shows up and wins everything, twice. This is the story of how Adolf Hitler tried to use sport as the ultimate propaganda weapon, and how sport handed it right back to him, twice, in 2 years, in front of the entire watching world. To understand why these two events matter so much, you need to understand what Hitler actually believed and what he was trying to show the world. Nazi ideology was built on a concept of racial hierarchy. At the top, the Aryan race, Germans, Nordic peoples, pure, superior, destined to dominate. Everyone else, beneath them, inferior, to be dominated or eliminated. Hitler had been in power since 1933. 3 years of consolidating control, eliminating opposition, building the machinery of a totalitarian state. By 1936, Germany looked, from the outside, frighteningly strong. Disciplined, unified, powerful, and Hitler wanted the world to see that power confirmed, not just militarily, not just economically, but biologically. He wanted German athletes to dominate the Olympics, to prove on the track and in the field what Nazi ideology claimed in its pamphlets. Superior people, superior performance. Simple as that. What he did not plan for was Jesse Owens, a sharecropper's son from Alabama, who showed up to Hitler's personal propaganda circus and treated it like a Tuesday. Now, before we get into what happened, let's appreciate the audacity of what Hitler actually built here. This wasn't just a stadium, this was a statement. 100,000 seats, the largest sports venue ever constructed at that point. Every surface covered in Nazi imagery. Leni Riefenstahl, Hitler's personal filmmaker, running around with 16 cameras to document Germany's inevitable triumph. He even had a torch relay specially invented for this occasion. You know, the Olympic torch thing you see every 4 years? Hitler invented that. For his propaganda event. You're welcome, world. The opening ceremony alone was designed to make every other nation feel small. Thousands of German athletes marching in perfect formation. The crowd going absolutely insane. Hitler in his box, looking like a man who has already won before a single event, has been held. The plan was simple. German athletes dominate every event. The world watches. The world concludes, maybe these guys are onto something with this whole racial superiority thing. Foolproof, except for one small problem. Jesse Owens didn't get the memo. Day 1, the 100 meters. Owens runs 10.3 seconds. Gold medal. Hitler's box goes very quiet. Day 2, the long jump. Gold medal. Day 3, the 200 meters. Gold medal. World record. Day 4, the 4x100 relay. Gold medal. World record. 4 events, 4 gold medals, 2 world records. Jesse Owens was the single most decorated athlete of the entire 1936 Berlin Olympics, in Adolf Hitler's stadium, built by Adolf Hitler. To prove Jesse Owens was inferior, Hitler left the stadium early that day, didn't stay for the ceremony, couldn't quite bring himself to watch the American flag go up for the 4th time above the swastika banners he had personally approved. The German newspapers the next morning were incredible. One described Owens as, and I want to be precise here, an animal with an unfair physical advantage. Because apparently when your ideology loses an argument, the response is to move the goalposts at high speed while pretending you aren't doing exactly that. One more thing about the 1936 Olympics before we get to the World Cup. During the long jump qualifying, when Owens was in danger of being eliminated, the German favourite Luz Long walked over and gave him advice. A German athlete in Nazi Germany, helping the black American athlete his government had spent years calling inferior. Owens qualified, won gold. Luz Long won silver. First person to congratulate Owens, Luz Long. in front of Hitler. They walked arm in arm around the track. Hitler watched the whole thing. We can only imagine the internal monologue. So, 1936. Complete propaganda disaster. You would think that's enough sport for one ideology. You would be wrong, because 2 years later, June 1938, the FIFA World Cup kicks off in France. And Hitler has opinions, but first, a quick political update. In March 1938, 3 months before the tournament, Hitler annexes Austria, the Anschluss. Austria simply ceases to exist as an independent country, which creates a very specific problem for FIFA. Austria had already qualified for the World Cup. They had a squad, a manager, a style of play known as the Wunder Team, one of the most technically gifted football sides in Europe at that point. Gone, overnight, absorbed into Germany. Those Austrian players were told they now played for Germany. Some of the best Austrian players refused outright and withdrew from the tournament entirely. Some had no choice. The ones who did play walked onto pitches in French stadiums wearing German kits, giving Nazi salutes, representing a country that had just erased their own. Let that sink in for a moment. First match, Germany versus Switzerland. The German team lines up, gives the Nazi salute in front of 60,000 people in a French stadium. The crowd's reaction is complicated. Some French fascist sympathizers in the crowd salute back. Most people just watch. The Swiss team stands there and waits for football to start. Germany draws 1-1. Needs a replay? They win the replay. Barely. Hitler's master race needed 2 matches to scrape past Switzerland. The French press notices this immediately. Here is where the 1938 World Cup becomes genuinely extraordinary. The French crowd, who are by this point extremely aware that Nazi Germany represents a direct existential threat to France, starts making their feelings very clear. Every German match is played in increasingly hostile stadiums. The French crowd cheers every opposition attack, boos every German touch, creates an atmosphere that is less sporting event and more political statement. Quarter-finals, Germany versus Switzerland. Again, the same crowd that was uncomfortable in the first match has now fully committed to a side. And that side is not Germany. Switzerland wins 4-2. Hitler's Germany, eliminated from the World Cup by Switzerland, 4-2. In the quarter-finals. Back in Germany, the result lands like a stone. The Nazi press ties itself in knots trying to explain it. Equipment problems, biased refereeing, unfair conditions, everything except the obvious explanation, which is that Switzerland was simply better on the day. In the same way Jesse Owens was simply faster in 1936. Sport has a way of doing that. The tournament concluded without Germany. Italy, Mussolini's Italy, won the final against Hungary, which was its own political situation, but at least Mussolini's team actually made the final. Small victories. 14 months after the 1938 World Cup ended, World War II began. The next Olympics, cancelled. The next World Cup, cancelled. Sport stopped for 6 years while the ideology that tried to use it consumed the world in the deadliest conflict in human history. The Berlin Olympic Stadium Hitler built to prove his ideology still stands today. In 2006, it hosted the World Cup final between Italy and France. Zidane headbutted Materazzi. Italy won on penalties. Hitler built the stage. History kept using it for other things. He tried to use sport to prove his ideology. In 1936, a man from Alabama with 4 gold medals proved the opposite. In 1938, Switzerland sent his football team home in the quarter-finals. Sport didn't care about Nazi ideology then. It never does. Drop it in the comments. What is the most political moment in sports history you know about? Subscribe to Historically Unhinged. New story every week.